Okay.
Boom.
And boom. Welcome to paraglidingtalk.com. I'm your host, Robert Michaels. Glad you're here. We have a great show lined up tonight. It is your show. Another episode that we're going to talk about all things flying. And we're going to talk about what you want to talk about tonight because it's paraglidingtalk.com. Paraglidingtalk.com is brought to you by PPG Smoke. PPGsmoke.com is the website. You're going to want to go and check out what they have to sell for all of your flying stuff. Really like the chase cams. They've got a new version out. Go check those out. If you've never made a video using the chase cam, connects your GoPro right on the back of whatever you're flying, whether it be I guess you could do it with a hang glider, but mostly paramotor and paraglider free flying. I use it for every once in a while. I just want to get a wild video. And so if you want to check that out, ppgsmoke.com's website. Also want to mention Harley Milne. He started a school here in Southern California. Harley Milne is a world record holder for paramotoring. So he flew coast to coast across the United States. He actually also flew in all 50 states here in the continent, the United States. He flew in Hawaii and also wow. What I can't
Hawaii
my brain just he did Hawaii and Alaska. Jeez. Yeah, so so he did all 50 states. Go check that out if you get a chance. His website is dreamlifterparamotors.com. Go check out his website. But if you're serious about wanting to get some exclusive training to do some kind of stuff like that, that's where you're going to do that. So sign up with him. I see he's training some people now. He's popping out some videos on his Instagram. There's a link in the description also if you want to get a hold of him. We have another sponsor. That's Andrew Fuller. He has a service for wing repair. It's a checkup shop. His website is https://paraglider-inspection.myshopify.com. There's also a link for that in the description. And more importantly, don't forget about when you blow up a prop, where you should buy a prop. Paramotorprops.com. Paramotorprops.com is the website. Go check them out if you need that in your life. Every once in a while, it happens. You chip one on the ground. Rocks and props do not mix. Just letting you know. Yeah. Gringo's running late. He's here now. Glad you made it, Gringo. He's putting together his motor and frame, new motor and new frame. So in this episode, we are going to talk about what you want to talk about. And Todd actually hopped on. I was so glad. I love when Todd comes around. He's a busy man, so it's hard to tie him down. He's retired now, but I think he's more busy now than he was when he was working.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to see him log in. I sent out some invites, and every once in a while I'll just throw one to Todd to see if he's available. And so he was able to come and grace us with his presence. Thank you, Todd, for joining us. You're not the special guest, but you are a special guest.
It's a pleasure to be here. I was telling Robert before the show that I watched his most recent video with a great attention to detail, and in the video he's got a shot of himself swinging around in the harness, and the camera falls forward for a minute and it shows his 2-meter radio. So I was interested in how they used the 2-meter radio, the world famous Baofeng UVR or UV5R, I think it's called. Yeah. And I noticed the frequency that it was on. I wanted to chat him up about it tonight, so I came on the show.
Yeah, he tried to chat me up on the radio, but didn't make it that far because he's in Florida.
So Robert,
yeah,
go ahead. Have you got more business to take care of?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that we typically use our little I'll call it a trinket radio. $25, I think it was. You can find them on Amazon or eBay, pretty much anywhere. We were having this discussion before we went live, and we were talking about how technically they're not legal to buy. And if you don't have
They're
a
legal to
ham
buy. They're
radio,
not legal to transmit on. They're legal to purchase and own, and the airwaves are free. You can receive them. But because they never submit, this is kind of like the uncertified wings in PPG. They never submitted this, or if they did, it failed under Part 95, which is the rules that govern FCC manufacturing of these type devices. And for whatever reason, they didn't obtain that. So they went to production with it anyways, and it was cheap, $25. I paid $23 for mine, I think.
yeah, it's pretty incredible. There have been some glitchy things that have happened, and eventually I sorted it out, but the GoPro would transmit. I'm not sure what it's doing. If I remember correctly, they were saying that it actually has GPS inside of it. So it's global positioning, sending out these little transmissions, and I would pick up some kind of interference. And so if you're some of my old videos, every once in a while, you'll hear this. And it's also something the phone will do. So I know my phone's transmitting. So, but I connected it to the radio because there'd be certain times I'd be flying the paramotor and it would start to freak out. I think they call it squelch. I'm still learning.
It could be squelch. So I'm going to tell you everything I know in a nutshell, which is about 1 minute. I used radios my whole career, and I know so little about radios. I know how they propagate. I know VHF radios have line of sight transmission limitations. I know that the airplanes that I flew were equipped with VHF radios, AM radios, UHF radios, high frequency radios, and satellite capability. But I really never got into how the radios worked. It was just from an operator standpoint. And the certificate that I ran to get was this. I don't know if you can see this. It is issued in 1983. I had to get this as a student pilot. It is a radio telephone operator's permit, and all pilots used to have to get these. I don't believe that this is a requirement anymore. And I had to carry this thing with me for the whole time that I was flying. Now, internationally, sometimes they would ask for proof that somebody in the airplane had one of these things. But
oh, no kidding. I was going to ask that.
It came with no training. It was just like, fill out this paperwork and pay $5 and you got this certificate. So uncertified airplanes have to have a piece of paper that goes with the airplane, that it is a radio station. The aircraft itself is a radio station. But with these things, this is a radio station, and we use them under a carve out that the US HPA obtained. I don't know what the date was, but from what research I've read and what I had picked up by going through a couple different courses with different paramotoring instructors, is the US HPA had a specific 5 frequency set allocated to them that the organization holds a base station license, or a general license, I guess is what it is.
Right.
And we utilize that under the tutelage of US HPA instructors or at US HPA approved facilities. And again, in researching a little bit today, I found out that different sites, particularly in California, have specific frequencies that they use at the various sites. Like Torrey Pines has their own frequency.
Yep.
So my question to Robert was, and we kind of went through this a little bit, but how did he choose, or how did the community choose the frequency that they used at Blossom? And are there potential legal ramifications?
That's a great question. Well, I do remember in the early days, we had a channel. I think it was like 144-525 or 505. I can't remember what it was, but I remember in the very beginning days, it was almost like you would show up, and I'm trying not to incriminate myself. You'd show up and it would kind of be like, hey, last week we heard a bunch of chatter going on this channel, and we're going to move to this frequency. and we're going to try that frequency out. I'll tell you what happens when you get to 2.5 or 3,000 feet above sea level. You're transmitting pretty far. So if anybody is on those frequencies that is line of sight, I'm shocked at how far these little radios are able to communicate. Sometimes I'll get above launch at Blossom on a certain day, and I'll hear people communicating all the way as far as Palomar. And I think we've even had some transmissions go 100 miles with these little 5 watts.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it
think
is
so.
not much. That's as much as you're allowed to legally use, as far as I know, in a
So
handheld.
I can
So
remember. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we came to the conclusion that this channel that we're using now didn't have any issues with chatter or people, using that in a legal form, I guess you would say. But we're kind of poaching that channel, I'm sure.
So a couple things. I remember one of the responsibilities of the non-flying pilot, cockpits have 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 pilots. And one of the responsibilities of the non-flying pilot was always to obtain the weather at the destination as you approach the destination, the most recent weather, and to relay information. In the days before, when we used ACARs and encrypted data packets that we could send by text, typing out, and then the radio would compile that and send it in a burst, we would physically pick up the microphone and call the station, Miami, this is flight whatever, we're going to be there in 38 minutes. And you were always under the pressure of getting that information transmitted as soon as you possibly could. And at 30,000 feet, typically, the range of those VHF radios was well over 200 miles. And
No kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
there were some tricks you mentioned squelch earlier. Most of the early days radios in the older 70s and 80s generation airliners had a push button squelch override. So you could go to 0 squelch and just hear static, and you could hold that button down and you'd be able to hear sometimes in excess of 250 miles on VHF, but the HF radios you could pretty much hear globally, especially depending on atmospheric conditions. Yeah.
No kidding.
So another thing I'd mentioned to Robert is I've just all of a sudden become fascinated with all of the capabilities of these little $25 radios in what all you can listen to and how they work and how to program them to ham repeaters and how to use the scanning functions and so on. If you don't have one of these things, you got to pick one up, but bear in mind, they do come with some legal exposure, particularly if you start pressing this transmit push to talk button here, that without a ham license, you're not really legally allowed to broadcast on any of these frequencies, except for those 5 that the USHPA has carved out. It's a rabbit hole that I wasn't prepared to go down. I've been watching this guy that he's a Jeeper, and his channel is called Not a Rubicon. And I've just been sucked in watching all of his content. And he talks about the legalities and how likely it is that you would ever get fined or arrested or imprisoned or executed for using one of these things.
Yeah, it's insane. I talked to some of the guys locally that one guy in particular that is very passionate about the structure of ham radio, and that involves you announcing your call signal before you say anything and then after you say anything. So whatever you're speaking into the radio, whatever you're communicating, has to be enveloped with those two. And I should probably get my license just for that. But I remember the hang glider pilots, they all, they were very passionate about that. And still to this day, you'll hear them every once in a while when we're flying together, even though they're on our frequency or we're on their frequency, however you want to say it. They just keep that formality.
So that they're using their ham radio call signs to transmit that they're flying
Yep.
their hang gliders? Because
While they're, yeah, like one of the guys will, he will, especially at the end of the day, landed safe, and then his call sign, and then signing off, and then his call sign, and then that's it.
very interesting stuff. Well, I was
Yeah.
just recently up at Dave Hanning's place. Dave has been a guest on your show, and I flew up there,
Yeah.
and I noticed that their instructor cadre was working with the brood of students that they had there. And I said, hey, I'm kind of here alone, so just for safety's sake, can I have the frequency that you guys are using? Oh yeah, sure. And they told me whatever it was, and I put it in the frequency mode in here, and I just left my radio on that channel frequency the whole time I was there. And it was helpful because they used it to coordinate the van on the sled rides to pick the flyers up and bring them back up to the top of the hill. And of course,
Smart.
the instructor at the top works with the student as they're launching. And then when the student gets halfway down the hill, he hands them off to the instructor at the bottom who coaches them through the approach and landing phase. It really, really worked out well in that case. But there again,
Yep.
I don't think the frequency that they were using fell in line with what the USHPA.
Right. Right. And the reason why, so let's reel it back before the governing agency becomes the king and ruler over the people. The reason why they had to create some kind of a structure was because if so many people were going to be using this means of communication, there needed to be some kind of a structure. It's just not very popular. So if I'm on not to mention how many different frequencies and how many channels there are, it's important that we have a governing body. However, it gets a little bit maybe overreaching to say, you can't use this unless, and it makes sense if you're putting out some kind of a dangerous frequency or you're blocking a frequency, because every once in a while you have a hot mic and it's hard to break through when you get somebody that's flying and they're smashing their radio in their pocket and they're nervous or whatever. It's pretty funny that you can, it doesn't take long for you to figure out that somebody has issues with their radio. Sometimes they'll break in the push to talk is stuck in place. Well, anyways, there's a certain place, and I'm very, I would say conservative when it comes to how much freedoms we should be able to have. This particular one, I did bat the idea around about going and getting this license, and I'm still open to it. I just hesitated to do it because the very minimal usage that I'm using it. When I got my radio, all I did was literally hand it to one of the other pilots that knew how to program it. And I said, can you please set up my frequency and beep, boop, 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 and hit the lock button. He handed it back to me. And then I didn't touch it until the next time that we flew together or till someone else knew how to change it. So, and I was only listening during especially the first year because I wouldn't take my hands off the brakes to transmit. And it, might be my instructor on there saying, hey, turn left, or don't, you need to go deeper, and, whatever, and giving me inputs to come into land or whatever. But there did come a place where now I'm communicating, now I'm helping someone, or we're on a cross country flight and we're communicating, hey, I found a thermal over here, join me and let's, I think I found the top of lift, let's take off from here. And these little short burst transmissions, they're not affecting some group of people that is making, incredibly important transmissions. And for the if I could kind of geese out a little bit, now I'm 43 years old. When I was a kid, my uncle had a ham radio set up in the attic of our barn, and we plugged that thing in, and all we did as little kids is go on there and say bad words, and we listened to the truckers communicating. And so they'd be doing their call signs and they'd be yelling at us, "Hey, you kids, get off of there. You're not allowed to be on there. I'm going to find out where you're at." But a lot of times we could just sit there and listen to what they were talking about. It used to be pretty popular.
I think the internet has kind of, direct messaging and the effectiveness of cell phones have rendered the ability or the need of most people to have direct radio communications obsolete. But the more I look into this, the more interested I tend to be. I think a couple things have happened here. That enforcement mentality, it exists in the Code of Federal Regulations, just like the FARs. And I do believe that there's enforcement teeth there. And I would never recommend anybody go out and take your $25 radio and start jamming the local fire department dispatch frequency or any of the number of things you could do to get in trouble with one of these things. But I also think the FCC is maybe warming up to the idea. The ham community hated these because they're so cheap. Because this does what, $1,400 worth of ham equipment in your ham shack does for $25, right? But I think too, the FCC has seen that if these are being used for legitimate communications, and not jamming frequencies, not stepping on other people, I'm not going to say that they're turning a blind eye, but that channel that I mentioned, that guy talks about the fact that the enforcement roles and actions of the FCC are public record. And he challenges anybody to show him evidence that anybody's ever been jailed or fined for using a non-licensed, non-Part 95 certificated radio as an FRS or GMRS or ham radio. And he says it doesn't exist. They got bigger fish to fry. They're more about shutting down the illegal broadcasting stations that are selling advertising and they're jamming or interfering with other frequencies, or the people that are getting in the way of critical infrastructure and first responders.
Mad Sloper gave a great comment. He said, USHPA radio frequencies on March 16th, 2001, the FCC Commission granted the United States Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, USHPA, 158.40, and he lists all the frequencies that we're allowed to use. And I'm assuming that's the ranges that we fall under. That's super cool. Mad Sloper, you're the man.
He is.
I'm assuming that's on their website.
And see, when you go to, like, if you also search for what frequencies are associated with which sites in California or globally for that matter, they don't all use one of those 5 frequencies, which is it doesn't concern me. It's just interesting that, the authorities, whoever they may be at Torrey Pines, for instance, and they may be one of the ones that uses one of these frequencies. So I don't want to point my fingers at Torrey Pines. I haven't even been there, but some of those sites are using frequencies in the 140 range instead of the 150 range.
Right.
So.
Now, I don't know. Now, I do know that Torrey Pines does use they're that 151505. But I was looking at the ranges that my little ham radio does. I don't think that you can pick up the local police or local fire. I don't think the band is big enough to it's not in there. So if it was, I would be interested to turn to that channel just for fun.
I used to have a police scanner back in the 80s. Okay. And what happened was, as the criminal elements of our society got more sophisticated, they were using those radios to do things like validate or check on police response times and interfere with police dispatch. So most police departments have gone to a trunking system where packets of the transmission are sent on different frequencies and they're recompiled at the end user's radio. And a lot of those are even encrypted. So even if you could recompile them, you can't hear them without the encryption key because they're encrypted for security purposes.
That makes sense.
My local fire department, they use encrypted direct text messaging to dispatch the fire trucks. But that is then duplicated with a computer generated voice system that sends out the call on 2-meter band for all of the other first responders that aren't under their direct dispatch control. So I've been listening to that a lot lately, and a lot of that I've been doing it with this radio, and just very interestingly shocked at how many dispatches there are from my local fire department when I'm at home in South Carolina there that around rush hour in the mornings and in the evenings, it's just blows me away how many times that radio goes off.
That's fascinating. You'll have to share with me maybe in the after show how I can tune in. I know our little city is not very active, but I'd be interested to jump in. Hey, Sean, let's spin the wheel a little early. And when we come back from the spin, I want to talk a little bit about an experience that we had with the fire rescue and two-way and ham radios that it actually really benefited us well.
Now we will need an enableability.
Oh, did I not unlock it? Shoot, here we go. You should be good now.
So no more names on the wheel. Just getting that out there. I know we're on a time delay, but it's not that much. So by the time you hear this, there's no more names. Okay.
By the way, I have great news, everyone. I bought the Starlink.
Nice.
Yeah, I just did it. Yeah, I had to just do it. I just, man, can't. I mean, still right now, my internet's holding on like a hubcap in the fast lane. But we're gonna get it. We'll get it dialed in. So it's supposed to be here on Monday, and we should be set up for a good, clear show next Thursday.
We all thank you for that, because your robot voice, you were doing very good at it, but you know, it's much nicer to hear actual pronunciation and enunciation.
Well, we'll see. It hasn't happened yet, so don't get too excited, because it may do the same thing. I don't know. I've heard some bad stories, so we'll see what happens. Go ahead and let that thing rip. This spin of this wheel is brought to you by Nebraska PPG. Josh Bowden runs a school in Nebraska. If you're interested in top-notch training, you can sign up with Josh and his team today. There's a link in the description. You want to get a hold of him and his team. Also, the spin of this wheel is brought to you by Calamity Kite Clinic. CalamityKiteClinic.com is the website. Sign up for some training. There's going to be a class coming up very soon at the Purdon's Fly-In. If you're wanting to be a part of that, reach out to Sean in the chat, or you can go to their website, CalamityKiteClinic.com. By the way, what we're going to give away tonight is a sticker, shirt, a micro SD card holder, and one of the mirror clamps that clamps onto the back of your throttle for paramotoring.
Oh, now we know this is rigged.
Yeah, well, Gringo's not even here. Well, it might be. Gringo's away from. He's away from the keyboard. So spin it again. You know, Gringo, what he's doing right now? He's actually in the garage.
Yeah, he's playing with his motor. You see that?
Yeah,
he's playing with.
He got a new frame. Yeah.
All right, here we go. I'm spinning.
He might as well be flying right now.
I know, right?
That's how rude that is. Just might as well be flying, just rubbing it in.
Totally dissed on us.
Yeah. So also want to mention Lone Star Paramotor. LoneStarParamotor.com is the website. If you're in the Lone Star state of Texas, you can reach out to Ron Turan and his team for world-class training. They really do have a great organization out there, and some just really good people training and bringing people into the joy of flying. LoneStarParamotor.com. LoneStarParamotor.com is the website. Sign up for a class with them as soon as you possibly can. Also want to mention MaxAcro.com. MaxAcro.com is the website for Max's SIV clinics. They do clinics mostly here in Southern California, but they will end up doing some in different places around the world. So go check that out at MaxAcro.com. It's like Will Fly is the winner.
Congratulations, Will Fly. It was very close, Yankee. I was like, oh no, now they're definitely going to think it's rigged if Yankee wins it. And then if I have to respin it, then it'll be Robert. And then that's going to be really awkward.
Rigged.
Congratulations, Will Fly.
Oh man. I just got hit with the sleepiness. Yeah, so we'll send that out. Will Fly, please go to the website and paraglidingtalk.com/contact and just put your address in there and I'll send out your winnings. So thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Actually, Will Fly sent me a bunch of stickers that I gave away to a bunch of people. I don't think I have any more. Congratulations.
So
Yeah,
Robert,
so we were flying.
well, I was
Go ahead,
gonna
Todd.
preempt you for just a second. You know, one of the things that
Yeah.
I know that the FCC is very tolerant of is when people have the need to utilize radios for life or death situations. They don't care if you're licensed. They don't care if you use radio protocol. If you give your call sign, they don't care. If it's a first responder initiative and it's saving a life or preventing loss of, aircraft or shipping or even expensive things, they're okay with that. So I do know there's that level of flexibility. So tell your story.
Yeah, so we had a situation, and these actually, this is two separate days. So day one, we'll just call it, I think it was a Thursday night. Local pilots are flying after work, trying to catch the evening glass off. And a guy ended up, he's flying low, didn't even have time to throw a reserve, pounded in and took a collapse, pounded in on the side of Amen Ridge, and put himself in a kind of a particular situation where he's too deep to be carried out on a stretcher and not quite high enough on the mountain to be roped up. And so they brought in a helicopter and they plucked him out of there, took him to the hospital, the broken back. He's okay now. He's doing well. But had hit this situation. That was Thursday. Friday, we had someone who is struggling to get up. Amen Ridge is kind of like your last ditch effort to get back up to where you can either land at your car where you park, we call it the bailout, or if you can, sometimes you can scratch your way all the way back up to the top launch. Well, this guy decided he was going to side hill land and wait for the wind direction to change into his favor so he can get back up. And I've done this many times. And someone who was maybe paying attention to the helicopter rescue last time saw this pilot go down and called and said another guy has crashed. And this dispatched fire to come. And what will happen is the communication was happening between one of the pilots that was there when the other guy went down. And if I remember correctly, they were doing some comms with fire to help them to locate where the guy was. And then he was able to communicate this time and say, hey, they made a phone call and said, hey, don't dispatch a helicopter. This guy's fine. He landed there on purpose. There's no injury and there's no rescue needed. I think the fire truck did roll up to Blossom and they made their way to the bailout. They've done this many of times over the years, but now they have our frequency that we use. And someone went and told them, hey, look, just in case you're interested, here's our frequency. And you can always ask us if something is called in as maybe a false crash or false flag. And so anyways, I thought that was interesting. I actually went down to the local fire station that takes care of our area. And I asked him if it was cool if my wife made cookies, can I bring them over? And after that, because that was super cool what they did for us. And those guys are really great. They also, my business took care of CAL FIRE, all of their air conditioning needs for a lot of years. And until recently, we had some weird government stuff happened, and they were always using us, but they would just kind of pay us cash, and there was it's kind of a messy situation. But we decided that we needed to be more formal and be. It's just a little kind of a weird situation. So, anyways, long story short, the radios played a huge part. Now, I said that to say this: we did have a guy go down on the face of El Cap, and Todd, you've watched my videos. You've seen the face of El Cap. Not a friendly place to have a crash,
Right.
right?
The rocks. Yep.
He
Power line.
he had a compound fracture, so and that means bones are sticking out. He's bleeding. He's in and out of consciousness, partly because of the pain, I assume, and then also just pounding in. When he woke up, because we saw him go down, and one of the guys that was in the air is Dave, or Bill Davis, and he's a former Navy SEAL, really knows how to communicate in kind of an under pressure situation. And so we're circling over where he had landed on the side of the hill. There's 5 or 6, maybe 10 at the most pilots in the air, and he's down. And so Bill Davis is circling around trying to get his attention, try to see if there's any movement. And he's on radio. He's yelling, "Hey, can you hear me? Are you okay? Can you give me a maybe even just squeeze the button? Can you let me know that you're okay?" And nothing for a long 10 minutes. And what it was is he had never turned his radio on. He had it with him, but he didn't turn it on. And so he kind of fumbled his way into the radio, turned it on. And once he was able to communicate, then we knew, okay, he is alive. This is a much different situation when you have somebody that needs to be rescued that is alive. Now, I am assuming that every accident is treated with a fervency to go and save this life. But I also have to think, if they got the information and this guy's probably not alive, that they're going to not take extra risks necessary to bring a helicopter into a place where it may be dangerous. I'll tell you how they rescued him. They actually the pilot of the helicopter dropped a couple guys off on the top of El Cap, and they rappelled down to get him. Something to note, by the way, if you have a situation where you need a helicopter rescue, and we should probably do a show on that, different rescue operations, try to bag your stuff up, because if the helicopter's hovering over you, that, obviously you need to get out of your gear, but also you don't want that gear to get sucked up. Everybody's seen that video of the helicopter that chopped up that big plastic sheet. I wish we had that video on deck. But that was a game changer. That helicopter, that was a huge helicopter, military aircraft, and it somehow sucked up a big giant piece of black plastic and went into the props. The helicopter still stayed flying, but man, that was scary. Same situation can happen with your glider. So anyways, this guy gets rescued. If it wasn't for the comms, because they were able to basically communicate, Dave was able to communicate to all of us to say, hey, they're going to be bringing a helicopter in here. We need everybody to land. If you can safely go and land, so that this helicopter could come in. Now that our airspace changed, it turned into a full-on, rescue operation. And it was a totally different situation. I hate to talk about this thing that we do. It's a leisure thing. We're just out there having fun. We don't have to fly. We do it because we enjoy it. But in this case, this is a rescue situation that was served with radios.
Robert, do you know how many untold hours professional pilots spend training for emergencies that hopefully never happen? It's just, It's good to do. The number of fake fires I put out with fire extinguishers, the number of times I've put on pretend oxygen mask and oxygen hoods and
Yeah.
scuba equipment and gotten in rafts and gone through all of the safety gear in those rafts and played We're Ditched at Sea survival games and the mentality of it. And thankfully, not very few of those things ever happened. So, you
Yeah.
know, radios give you a tremendous situational awareness tool, and you know, be it in a tactical situation where you got you're being attacked or you're attacking someone in a military context, or riding around in your Jeep and some dude gets lost, you know, and you
Yeah.
think about how much ground we can cover with our paragliders and paramotors, and sometimes it's rough terrain. It's nice to be able to pick up the radio and be able to communicate that pleasantries and urgencies with your fellow guys that are flying. It can maybe help do something to help the situation, you know.
We had a ground support, two different groups on the ground in Jeeps, and they use their radios all the time. And it was really neat to have them jump on our frequency. And this was with Jeff Hammond when we flew in a really, really remote area. I mean, if we went down in this, we call it tiger country when we're talking about free flying. It was tiger country. We were in the middle of nowhere. If we would have had a motor out, this would have been almost deadly because of how far out and the time that it would have took to get us out of there. But we had these guys on the ground with the Jeeps, and listening to them communicate while we were driving, I was really assuring, and just there was like a comfort to know that there was somebody on the ground where we were going. At one point, you can go back and watch this video, but at one point I'm flying over an area where the military used to bomb these hills from the air, and there's still craters from, munitions. But by the way, Will Fly donated $5 to Super Chat. I didn't want to miss that. He said, Resurgence, PPG rocks, and Todd's okay too.
You must be talking about Todd Scandard.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Bill H mentioned in the comments that he was so glad that this was the topic, and I don't even know if it's the topic. It was just something I wanted to run by Robert, but he says he just got his license. I'm assuming he means his ham license.
Nice.
I got to tell you one other thing that this has nothing to do with paramotoring or paragliding. I got sucked into this rabbit hole so far. There's this device that plugs into the USB port of your computer. It's about that big. It's called a SDR. I believe it's, I don't even know what it's saying. It's a digital receiver is what it is. It uses what you can hook antennas up to it. And it is it's like the Baofeng UV5R for your computer. And now you can hook into digital and shortwave. And depending on what antennas you configure and hook up to this little dongle that plugs into your USB port, you can receive basically anything on the radio spectrum of frequencies, from visible light to television broadcast to satellite to downlinks from the International Space Station. I found that pretty interesting. I'm thinking I'm going to buy one, right? They're like $40, but I found the next best thing, and it's a collection of them on a website called websdr.org. And I've been messing around with it the past couple nights, websdr.org. I've been messing around with it. You can go to any number of like 150 of these different SDRs that are hooked up somewhere. Maybe it's in England, maybe it's in Rome, maybe it's in Russia. And you can use their SDR through your computer to manipulate the frequencies and tune that thing however you want to. Yeah, there it is, Gringo. Yeah, you can tune that thing to any frequency you can possibly imagine. You can listen to everything that's being broadcast in that country. It doesn't have anything to do with paragliding. It's just an offshoot from how far I got sucked down the rabbit hole of this Baofeng radio.
Wow. Yeah, I really do think that there's a place for it. We have, in our country, have experienced such a long period of peace that I don't think we really appreciate communications. And I hesitate to predict anything, but if I had to guess, we're going to need alternative means of communication at some point. We just had our go at a hurricane, if we can call it that. I did find out that I had exactly 1.87 inches of rain. I wanted to let you know that we survived 45-mile-an-hour winds. That was my max gust on my weather station. And yes, I have a weather station at the house now. Yeah, thank you, Nick Hawks, who donated that to the property. Super cool. Really nice weather station. Way nicer than I deserve. And yeah, so that by the way, I wanted to mention something in this show. It bears some need for time sensitivity, and two different guys in the past week had incidents, in one involving death. Woody Hayes passed away. It involved water. We're not sure exactly what happened. We can only assume that was a drowning, but autopsy reports are coming out at some point. I'll save what potentially happened, but I just wanted to reiterate my concern for those that are foot dragging in the water without flotation. Really think about what's going on. I did a show, maybe a couple of years ago, and I talked about, and I tried to really envision what happens in that moment. You go from this extremely high of being, inches off the water and feeling your foot hitting the water to, and especially when it's cold, going completely into the water, face first, smacking your face on the water incredibly hard and getting this chill over your whole body. And you're having really just, I don't want to say minutes, you have seconds to get yourself untangled. That's to say that your motor is not pulling you quickly into the depths of however deep this lake or body of water is. And you're literally going to be sometimes farther than you can swim away from shore, or a place where you can get yourself sorted. Your clothes are pulling you down. Your shoes are making it very difficult for you to swim. And that's if you got yourself out of the entanglement of your wing. I just wanted to make this statement. Most deaths involving anything are because someone went in to the water with their paraglider. So just be careful. I know it looks so cool with the foot drag and the chase cam, and I know we're risky. We take chances a lot of times. Really think about what you're doing over water and consider getting some flotation. There's no reason why you can't, if you can afford to buy a paramotor. I mean, if you can afford to put the gas in your paramotor in California, you can afford to go and get yourself some flotation. And I know there's many different options out there. Obviously, one of our sponsors even sells them. There's no excuse where you need to get set up with flotation. It just has to be something that you do. Also, a lot of conversations about a certain person who went down, and it involved taking the wing and tip touching on a spiral landing, or whatever you want to say. And he ate crap and he broke both of his legs. So both ankles. Okay. Yeah. And so
broke one bad and fractured the other. Yeah. But he got
10 weeks. Is that what you said?
He put a great video out, and you should watch it.
Oh, really? Okay, great. Yeah. If
I'll see if I can find it.
My brain's not working.
Who was this? Who was this guy? He was a motor guy?
Yeah, paramotor. It's Shanzi's nephew. Gosh, what's his name?
Trevor Steele.
Trevor. Geez. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name. Yeah, so Trevor ate crap, and he did capture on video, which is cool. But you can hear him say it, right? He knows he's going in. You hear him say, "Oh gosh," and I mean it's bad.
There was
Both
another
things.
word
Now,
in there, but yeah, it's close.
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to
There
donate
is
$5
a
to the jar.
yeah. He it's just a few inches and it would have been different. So literally you can put the future of your flying in, this little tiny blade of a bush or a weed. That one little hook can grab your wing, yank you into the ground, and make you think twice about your life decisions.
Well, and if
So
you
just
really think about
be
that,
careful.
just a split second. That's all it takes is one split second of
Yeah.
anything. I mean, your motor hiccups, your spark plug fouls. If you're down low to the ground, you got to be careful. And a lot of times as people getting complacent, they're years experienced. They've done it a million times. All it takes is that one time and that 1 second.
It's risk versus reward. I mean,
Yeah.
I love parasurfing out here on the West Coast. I love it with a passion. And I know the risks, and I know that I got a carburetor that wants to give out a lot. So I'm willing to risk it. I have flotation. Doesn't mean it's going to protect it 100%, but I'll
Yeah,
weigh
you
it.
have a much better chance for sure.
No doubt. So I mean, I'm, if my motor's iffy, I know it's being weird or iffy, I won't push it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel an obligation when we're on the show to promote safety, and that's what we've done for the last 5 years. But every once in a while, I just feel like we need to have a little pump the brakes a little bit and think about what's going on. Think about what you're doing. Yeah. So yeah, I really like Todd. Thank you so much for coming with that topic, because we really don't talk about radios enough, and it is kind of one of those nerd things, but we're all pretty dorky, paramotoring, free flying. We're a different breed. So
I
it
think
worked.
the ham guys, they get, and since I programmed this thing to scan frequencies and then rescan the frequencies where there's activity, I hear a lot of these conversations amongst hams, and that's all they talk about. They don't talk about anything like current events or where they're going on vacation. They talk about, hey, your radio is making my meter go to 9, and oh, you're sounding scratchy, and oh, well, it's really a kind of a geeky hobby, but we're no different. All we do is talk about flying and talk about paragliding and talk about paramotoring. I mean, I'm sure there's a group of people that think that this is one of the dorkiest communities as well, but
Oh, thank you.
Show it to the camera.
Thank you.
Show it to
I was
the
going to eat at the table though.
You were?
Yeah, but that's fine.
Sure? We
Yeah,
never
thank
know.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
show
you.
it to the camera.
Yeah, they saw it. Thank you.
What did they say?
They said, "Wow,
we love
look at
chicken
that
livers.
amazing."
Who is it? Which one is it? Tell him to show himself.
Show yourself, Braden.
Show yourself, Braden.
He's
Live on the
trying to escape
internet.
now. Yeah, the wife's trying to hide over there too. Yeah,
His wife's the chef. He's the server, and he's
Delivery man.
independent, so he thinks.
I ate super early today too, so this is tormenting. This is
It's got cut it 5 minutes short. All right, we're going to the after show right now.
Yeah, even the dog is looking at me like, "Are you gonna eat that?"
You gonna finish that? Come on, wise guy.
Yeah. So by the way, really appreciate everybody, all your feedback and topics. We have some great shows lined up, 2 more shows. The next couple ones are going to be really good. And we're going to talk about some free flying stuff. There's some things that we're going to bring to the table that are really cool. Also want to mention the Resurgence PPG. If you want to support our men and women of uniform and encourage these guys that are down and out on PTSD and just kind of the frustrations of the United States military, you can support those guys by sponsoring them to get them under a wing, maybe on a paramotor, and some training and some gear and a life vision. So such a cool thing. They are a 501c3 support Resurgence PPG at resurgenceppg.com if you can do it. It's a great organization. So yeah. So the rules are you need to get your ham radio certification. It's really important. And they will teach you things that will keep you inside the parameters of not just safety, but so you're not annoying people or causing some kind of a problem for people. And so, yeah, really good topic, Todd. I had no idea what I was going to talk about tonight. I was maybe talk about crashes and stuff like that. So thank you for jumping on and coming to hang out with us. Sean, thanks for spinning the wheel. Yeah, Gringo, thank you for being AFK for like 50 or 75% of the show.
I'll throw this out there too. Dave Purden's flying is from the 1st to the 4th of September. And it's annual. This is his 24th. Okay.
Wow.
So yeah, it's going to be a good time. So any pilots that go out there.
Sean is planning on being out there. So this is your chance to sign up for Calamity Kite Clinic. This is your chance to get really good at ground handling. And man, that is such an important thing. If you're going to be a pilot, especially if you're going to be a free flight pilot, oh man, if you don't know how to ground handle, it is so embarrassing. And I've been there getting dragged all over launch.
Especially when the winds pick up. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every person that I've talked to that said, hey, I love your show. And every person that brings up Sean, they're always like, yeah, Sean, he's the guy that ground handles. He's like professional. And you don't hear that about everybody. I still haven't really seen him ground handle. So it's still a mystery to me. Want to do a ground handle competition.
Yeah, that was rather awkward because I went all the way down to California just so you could see it. And then you were on the other side of the beach. But that's how it goes to Salton sometimes.
Hey, and when you were there at Salton Sea, you saw how much a paraglider has trouble, even with the wing, with a paramotor, and how to coordinate all that. Look at him and Tony Boyer. Boyer never chimes in on our show here, but yeah.
Yep. Well, we are going to go to the after show. If you want to join us, come hang out. We're going to probably nerd out for a little bit, and I'm also going to do some eating here because I am starving. So thanks for watching. Really awesome show. Don't miss the next few episodes. Check out paraglidingtalk.com. And then also, if you want to support the show and support my incredibly expensive habit,
want to join us and hang out
internet in Southern California.
Out for a little
If
bit.
you want to support that, the way that works is Patreon. The Patreon money pays for the internet and the packages that I send out. Each week I send out a package. I think the last one was like, I don't know, $8 to $10 or something like that. Every once in a while, somebody overseas wins something. It's like $30. So that's where the money goes. I don't pay Sean or Gringo. That's why they're always complaining.
We do it for stickers.
Yeah.
It's just a bowl of rice and maybe a couple squares of toilet paper, but
hey, it looked like I won the wheel. So can you ship whatever it was to me?
Yeah.
I'll give you the 3 squares of toilet paper he gives me for the show.
Yeah, I am so sorry about that. About the
No, you're good.
I had like 1,000 windows open and I knew I didn't stand a chance to try to figure out which one it was. So I just
hit end.
And
yeah.
That was the problem.
Well, thank you guys for watching. We're gonna go to the after show.